The following is brought to you by VerticalVet. Rethink your GPO.
Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of Vet Med School from VerticalVet. I'm Dr. Ernie Ward, Chief Veterinary Officer for VerticalVet, and it is my pleasure to once again bring to you a very important medical topic that impacts practice, our patients, and even our revenue. And today we're going to be talking all about genetic testing, but it's not just genetics of the pet that we're talking about. We're talking about the genome, the genetic foundations of everything, including bacteria, maybe even viruses that reside in an animal's body. So this has really gotten quite exciting because we are now entering quickly into an era that we can detect disease, detect pathology decades, years at least, before it becomes fulminant in our patients. And so I can't think of a better specialist, I'll say that term loosely today, but a better company that specializes in this than Basepaws. Now, they are one of our strategic partners at VerticalVet. So we go out and we look for companies that are doing amazing, innovative research, therapeutics, diagnostics to bring to you, our VerticalVet members. And so Basepaws is one of those companies that we've been working quietly with for some time, for several years. They're a relatively new company, and I, of course, also work with them on a different level as well as an advisor. And I'll tell you, we want to make sure that you know what's happening in this space because it is happening rapidly. And there's some big changes for 2022 that are going to directly impact your clinic. And so again, as VerticalVet members, we're going to be the first to bring that to you. And my guest today is Dr. Kash Kuruppu, and she is coming to us all the way from Ontario, Canada, that cold land to the north of us. And she is one of the veterinarians for Basepaw. So Dr. Kuruppu, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ward, for having me.
Now, you graduated from Guelph University from vet school, right? So tell us a little about your history with Basepaws.
Yeah, so I've had quite an exciting journey after vet school. So after vet school, I decided there wasn't enough schooling I had, so I went to graduate school, and that's where I got into this sort of genomics and bioinformatics. So that's what I did my master's thesis on. And after that, I actually went on to found another startup. And then got into sort of the pet tech world. And what we were trying to do was essentially improve preventative care compliance and trying to bring together veterinary practices, kind of bring them to the 21st century in terms of how we use technology to help us in the practice, but also, improve our bottom line. And all in all, that's how kind of I was led to Basepaws, combining my graduate work and also my pet tech experience. And when I knew that they needed a veterinarian that kind of had both of those skills, it just kind of was a match. And ever since then, I've been just involved in so much of the things that Basepaws does, and being able to bring that to the clinical level. Like, I still spend some time in private practice as well when I have spare time. So just being able to see what's going on in the ground and bringing it together with the newest technology, it's just something really exciting, and I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, and your team is incredible. And again, I've been involved with Basepaw
Smartest
since
people
the
I
beginning.
know.
Yeah, I mean, these are brilliant scientists. There's a ton of PhDs that actually have kind of filtered over from the human end of the spectrum, if you will, and applying some of those advances in technologies to pets. Now, one of the things I'd like to sort of, if you could briefly describe is, look, I think most of VerticalVet members are aware that there are these genetic tests out there, and most of them stop at the breed identification, because that's kind of what we've had hammered on us for the past decade. It's like, oh, you can do this test and it tells you if it's a doodle or a doddle, right? But we've gone far beyond that. So explain some of the unique aspects of Basepaw's genetic technologies and what we're beginning to be able to do as far as disease detection. I know we're going to get more details, but just a brief overview for people that maybe just aren't quite familiar.
Yes, and that's a great way to start, I think, because, even thinking to my genetic education in vet school, it was maybe one lecture saying, this is dominant recessive, don't breed anything with the mutation, and all short phase dogs are bad. And just that's really not the way to think about it. So once I learned that there's much more to genetics in terms of not just breeding practices, but when we talk about genomics, we're talking about the things that not just genetically that make us up, but also how our environment has impacted us, how our ancestry affects us. So this is the same whether we're talking about humans or animals. And Basepaws is the only company that has ever really started with the focus on cats and felines. And that's a really hard thing to do because you already mentioned that there's a few different companies that have offered the genetic testing for dogs. And to be that company that does it for cats, it's actually a big accomplishment because cats are so different from humans or dogs when it comes to how they were evolved. They domesticated themselves alongside us. And what that means is they're genetically really complicated. And to be able to parse through that information, we need, very high processing computers. We need technology that's was really expensive up until very recently. So now that's one of the huge reasons that we're able to offer this to consumers, to veterinarians. And we'll get more into this, but we're actually thinking about offering this technology for other species, including dogs, because we don't want to leave them out. And the way that our scientists have come up with how to study the genetics and genomics, we're actually able to study it in a way that's economical. And also allows us to learn more about mutations and how therapies might work. So it's really opening the door for true personalized medicine. So I do get really excited about the work that we do every day.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, we are literally entering into a new era of medicine, and that begins by recognizing disease earlier, and that begins with the genetic makeup of our patients. So this is super exciting times. And again, if you're interested in learning more about the details of how Basepaws genetic technologies, how they work, as opposed to some of the other people who are doing this, really, I encourage you to reach out to them. And we'll include links. Of course, you can always contact us at VerticalVet, and we'll get you straight over to them. But I think it's worth a deep dive for those of you that are very interested in genomics. Now, let's talk a little bit about the impact on the practice before we get into kind of the details, because there's going to be a lot of vets out there, a lot of owners and managers that are watching this and going, that sounds great, but don't these people just like do this online or something? But actually things are changing. And I think one of the things I want to impress upon the VerticalVet membership is that the people, the clients, the pet parents that have utilized Basepaws technology in the past actually utilize their veterinarian's services much more than the general public. So maybe we could talk about that a little bit.
Yes, that's all very exciting. And I do have a slide that we can share with your audience too, just to kind of drive some of these points home. Because we collect data on everything that we do, not just, looking at just the genetics. We also want to know what the impact is of this type of testing and how it can actually be used in practice. Because our ultimate goal is to improve the health of our pets. Because all this information, if we don't know how to use it, it's just information. And pet parents, they want, at the end of the day, their pet to be healthy. And a key component of that is their veterinarian. So something that we're really focused on is involving the veterinarian in that full pet health cycle, where it may be that the pet parent came across genetic testing on their own, which has been kind of what the trend is up until now. But you're right that it's changing, and more veterinary practices are reaching out to us, are going out of their way to do research and watch webinars like this to get more informed, because genetic testing, it's one of those tools that actually opens up a whole new aspect to not only our health but also our pets' health. And actually, because our pets actually spend so much time with us, knowing more about them has actually helped us learn about ourselves and our health as well. Our lifestyles tend to be very similar when it comes to how we view exercise, how we view diet. So those things we actually are learning about each other when we do genetic research. So just to bring it down to the practice level, what we're really seeing is that when customers purchase this test, it's giving them a piece of information that they've never had before. So just to think about cats, a lot of cats come into homes through adoptions, rescues. So people really don't know anything about this animal, where they come from, what their history was like, what types of diseases they might be prone to. So Basepaws is able to provide this information based on breed and different health markers of things that they may be at risk for. And with looking at the oral microbiome, which we can get more in depth into later. But now we're able to even give them information on their predisposition to dental disease. And there's nothing like that out there. And so all of these things actually end up raising more questions for the veterinarian, and they end up, sharing this report with their veterinarian. And that's the point where, it comes into your practice, and there's so much now you can do with this information.
Right. So first and foremost, if you're out there in vet practice, if a person brings in a Basepaws report, that is a pet parent who wants more veterinary care. End of story. I mean, that the data supports it, and certainly, I think the anecdotal reports that we get from Basepaws customers reinforce that value. The second thing I want to remind our vets about is that this is a reservoir forever. So once we get that genetic code, we can unlock it as data unfolds, right? I mean, that's really important. And so, Kash, maybe speak a little bit about the difference between just knowing that your cat or your dog, is a variety of breeds, as opposed to saying, we're now looking for specific genome or genomic traits that indicate a predisposition or risk factor for a disease.
Exactly. And this is brand new, even to us. We're pulling the latest research and putting that into our test and being able to test for the diseases that we're just detecting in animals. So for example, something that the Basepaws test is able to tell pet parents is their risk for if they have a marker for example, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy or HCM. And this is not, the inheritance pattern for this particular disease isn't, dominant recessive. It's actually made up of a combination of genetic markers. So just being able to know your predisposition for something like that, way before you ever see clinical signs. That's not a tool that a veterinarian has right now without doing genetic testing. So just having that information, now you have a pet parent that's concerned and wants to act on this information and needs the veterinarian's help to do so. So all of the additional diagnostics that you're going to do, the additional vet visits, the monitoring, all those things, now you can make a personalized plan for this particular pet based on their risk. And that does mean more revenue for your
Right.
practice.
And I want to get into that in just a minute because the revenue impact is significant, or certainly for clinics that are already embracing it. But I want to rewind 1 second to a point you just made.
Okay.
And that is that I think too often veterinarians want a diagnostic test. This is more of a predictive indicator, a risk assessment. And that's really important, guys, because what we're saying is if you can identify a dog or a cat is at increased risk from a genetic standpoint early in their life, you're going to be more vigilant. And that means that we're going to be monitoring more closely. As opposed to right now, what do? We wait until a medical symptom develops. And for HCM, Kash, it's too late. I mean, if we wait until syncope develops in a cat, good luck with that, right? I mean, we're not going to have a great outcome. So I like the fact that this is one of those things that sets you up for a lifetime of monitoring for the right things. See, otherwise, what would you do with a cat or a dog, Kash? I mean, this is what we've been doing. I've been doing for 30 years. It's just kind of looking at it. Well, it's a bulldog. Well, it's a lab.
In the first place.
And guessing, right? And then waiting until something happens. And so now we're able to say, let's take a look at the genetic data. Let's say this cat might have a more increased risk for renal disease. So let's maybe modify the lifestyle, change the diet, maybe do some more preventive or predictive tests, watch those BUN creatinine, further, SDMAs as we move forward. But I want to also focus on the change that's happened within Basepaws, and that is the fact that we're now beginning to offer veterinary clinics a suite of tests that you wouldn't find anywhere else. So maybe let's talk a little bit about partnering with.
Yes. So this is something that we've always done, and we've always valued our partnership with veterinarians, but now we are wanting to double down on this because we know that the information that we are able to get from these tests, so from looking at the oral microbiome, looking at the genetics of the animal, we're actually able to provide the types of information that can inform therapy. And that's not something that's useful to the pet parent on its own. They need the help of the veterinarian. So what we're doing is really looking at diseases that we believe has a genetic component that has not yet been discovered. So these are diseases that always leaves us, scratching our head in terms of what to do. And they tend to be these chronic sort of ongoing diseases. So some examples are like dermatitis or IBD, diseases that we don't really have a silver bullet or something where we can really take care of this. It's an ongoing, annoying type of condition for both the pet parent and the veterinarian. So it's, you know, there's enough research in both human and animal side that gives us confidence that there are genetic components that are contributing. And imagine that, we do discover these with the help of our practices that are partnering with us and our customers, that actually enable us to develop therapies that are not just, band-aid solutions, that are going to be specific to the condition, whether it's an allergy and we know how to treat it. And all of this happens when we do unravel the genome and figure out, okay, what's causing some of these diseases. And we're already seeing that with dental disease and tooth resorption. There's no way for us to know as veterinarians on what causes tooth resorption, but just now being able to detect the risk for developing
Right.
tooth resorption um, before we even see clinical signs. Now we're at that next stage of, okay, what actually is causing it in these groups of cats, and what can we do about it?
Right, and I want to point out, I want to go back to that slide in just a second, but one of the unique things
Mhm.
that Basepaws is doing is we're partnering with vet clinics to do research. And this is why we need Vertical Vet members to help us, because there's a long
Yeah.
list of diseases that that Basepaws is offering a wide variety of testing, often free of charge to the pet parent. And again, I don't want to overstep that because we're always trying to help our Vertical Vet members, Kash. But this is important because in order for us to accelerate this area, we need your help. So I want to put that list back up real quick, Kash, and walk through some of the things
Yeah.
that vets can do today.
Yeah, so this list is also available a little bit more in depth on our website as well. And the great thing is that because we are researching and you are collaborating with us to do research, we're able to provide, the information that you need in terms of, because these are your patients, you know the history of these patients, and you're actually now able to provide them an additional, diagnostic screening tool. So you're showing them that you actually care deeply about what's going on, and you've tried everything that you have. So now being able to like actually go on this research journey, both you're adding value to your veterinary client patient relationship, but in addition to that, in terms of having this type of relationship with the company that's focused on high quality research, you're actually able to drive our discovery, because you see on the ground what is important when it comes, or what works when it comes to therapy, when it comes to risk categories, whether it's age, breed, and depending on different geographies, because we're this sort of central uh, tool to actually collect this information, but we need help from veterinarians, all over the globe, because diseases present differently. So some of these diseases, for example, I focus a lot on the allergies, because that tends to be really, specific and unique when it comes to geography. If you have seasons where you live, if what the breed also has a component to it. So all these things, and up until now, we didn't have the ability to, incorporate all this data. But now that we have, we don't want to quit. Like there's cats, there's dogs, anything that is on this list, or if we don't have something on this list, that's where you guys can come and let us know. We're very much wanting to work with veterinarians and help them. So whether it means providing tests, whether it means providing additional workups, which we have done for specific cases where it's just been such a mystery. We really just want ultimately to take care of our pets as best we can.
And Kash, here's what's so exciting about this, and I'm going to bring it back to management because that's also
Yeah.
one of my areas of specialty. Let's say that you've got a dog with atopic dermatitis. Basepaws is looking for candidates. So now you're going to enroll them in this study, and I'm assuming that test will be at no charge to the pet parent. Is that right, Kash?
Yeah, that's what we do because they're essentially providing us this valuable data, and the least we can do is provide a test. But we also do compensate the clinic as well for
Right.
helping us because it's really a lot of work to give us this information outside of your regular routine. Not that it's a lot of work to actually submit the sample, but we just appreciate it, and we want to show that we do
Right.
appreciate it.
So again, there's that end of it. But here's what I think people don't talk enough about, Kash, and that is the fact that the people that participate in this type of research, those are going to be the pet parents that are going to be coming back for more repeat tests, more repeat diagnostics, therapeutics, and so forth. So getting back to that atopic dermatitis canine, that's going to be a very attentive pet parent. And so, guys, do you see what I'm saying? You're actually reinforcing behavior. You actually give them something, so they love that, but then they're going to return it in like kind. So this is such a win-win for you. Please, Vertical Vet members, let's help this because I'm telling you, this benefits everybody. Now, I do want to focus on one other element too. The sample acquisition, because there's a lot of different tests. They do different things. Just could you walk us through how easy and quick it is to get the samples that you're looking for?
It's actually a lot of people get really surprised to know how quick it is. It's literally a 5-second cheek swab, whether it's on a cat or a dog. And what we're actually getting from that saliva is not only the genetics of the pet itself, but also the genetics of the microbes that live in the mouth. So that's where we touched a little bit on the oral microbiome. And what we're finding is that there's actually a lot of information there about, first of all, there's a lot of information about the pet's health, pet's dental health, because obviously that's the mouth. But in addition to that, now we're seeing associations with systemic diseases, for example, like CKD and heart disease. And these things we're also seeing in humans. So currently, Basepaws is the only company that offers an oral microbiome test for pets. And this is a huge, new development, and there's going to be so much more that are going to come out of just studying the oral microbiome. Because what's great about that, and slightly different from the pet's genetics, is that we can affect change in the oral microbiome very simply with things like prebiotics, probiotics, because essentially what health is, when you talk about a biome, is an environment where there's a dynamic between good guys and bad guys when it comes to bacteria and microbes. And a healthy mouth, there's a combination of good and bad bacteria both living together, but the healthy mouth has a higher a proportion of the good guys. So a diseased mouth, for example, if we're seeing in periodontal disease, it's an overpopulation of the bad guys, and very simply we can change this environment to help the mouth heal. And this is something where we can even today, just by doing the test and implementing a change and changing the microbiome of the mouth, whether it's toothbrushing, water additive, or any type of product, we're already seeing a change. And doing that retest 3 to 6 months later, we're seeing a whole different mouth.
Right.
And
Vertical
that's
Vet
how we're
members,
able to be,
I got to jump in here
yes,
because we are
yes,
used to looking at this through the lens of when periodontal disease exists, then there's all these pathogenic bacteria. We're saying, no, no, no. This is early in the stage. What we're able to do now is take a dog or a cat, swab them, get their genetic information as well as their oral microbiome information, and say, look, we're seeing some things here that could lead to problems down the road. That's when these tests are so valuable. And I know you have a slide about this early disease prediction, but this is really
yes,
what we're headed
yeah.
for. So now let's go back to that oral bacteria example, Kash. So we've got a 2-year-old dog, beautiful, healthy dog, mouth looks fine, at worst, stage 1 periodontal disease, maybe just a little bit of discoloration, a little bit of no calculus yet, so right, so we're seeing some tartar and so forth. And we do a swab, and we discover, wait a second, I'm seeing a high instance of a potentially pathogenic bacteria. What do we do then, Cash? We intervene, we may prevent this from getting worse. And then here's what
Exactly.
excites me more than anything, Cash, and you mentioned it, but I want to repeat it. Some of these
Hmm.
bacteria have been linked with other diseases, including kidney disease. And so at the end of the day, we may be identifying more than just bad teeth. We may actually help prevent very serious organ failures, right?
Yes, and when we talk about dogs and cats, there's, an inherent problem there because maybe you're able to look in your dog's mouth, but it's almost impossible to look in your cat's mouth. And that way we do miss a ton of disease, even as veterinarians, because, no one wants to get bit. And this is one quick way to get so much information that the value is it's incredible. And clients want this level of attention, this level of personalization in this day and age for themselves and their pets. And you being able to kind of offer this shows them that you're actually at the forefront. And it's a very different experience of you having this conversation with them before they even going off in their own and finding this type of testing, because they they want to put their trust in their veterinarian, but there's so much information out there that's kind of clouding that relationship. So just you being able to offer this before they've had to, they had to go and find this on their own, whether it's through a wellness plan that you have, it's a kitten, puppy, or any new pet. This is a great way to develop that relationship because before anything goes wrong, you're already telling them how you can make their life better and how you can add value to this relationship, um,
Right.
before the pet parent even has an issue.
And look, younger pet parents, Cash, they want this. They are
They
they're
do.
reading this, they're seeing it on TikTok, and they're going, "Why don't you do genetic testing on my cat or dog?" So it's here, and we need to embrace it, and we need to, I think, enhance it. And that's where, again, partnering on an R&D standpoint with Basepaws is so unique. Nobody else is doing this. That's why we're partnering with them, Vertical Vet Family,
That's
because
right.
we're trying to accelerate this whole domain. And again, I know you have a slide about the early disease detection and the importance of that throughout the lifetime. One other quick thing, Cash. One of the things that Basepaws doesn't talk about as much, but I certainly do, and that is the repeatability of these tests. So see, your cat or dog's DNA, it is a bit of a one and done. The technology, the ability to interpret that data will improve over time, but your genes aren't going to change unless have a solar radiation event, okay? So what will change are things like the oral biome. And look, this is the tip of the iceberg because there's a biome on the skin, there's a biome in the gut, there's a biome everywhere. In fact, in the human research, just recently, a new research paper came out linking a certain common virus to multiple sclerosis. So we're just learning this whole universe of influence. So my point being that with Basepaws, with all of these tests to monitor biomes, I predict over the next year or two, we're going to start to recommend our pet patients once a year testing and say, let's make sure things haven't changed in the mouth. And then of course, as you evolve and test other biomes, which I know we can't talk about just yet, but it's coming. I think
It's
that's
coming.
where the real utility for the clinic is going to come, right?
Yes, and it's just so exciting because it's something that's so we don't even think about, like our own microbiome. It's changing hourly, it's changing daily. So this little snapshot and being able to detect your risk for developing disease. Yeah, and if you wanted to share that slide, we can kind of use that as well. You can see that today, when a pet parent comes to the clinic, we're seeing pets with clinical signs. That means there's active disease going on. We have been, in the last few years getting early diagnostic tests where we can detect disease, up to 2 years early. For example, there's renal tech that's able to give us a prediction on when renal disease might develop. But the level that the oral microbiome is telling us, it's way earlier. It could be as early as 5 years before disease develops. And this gives us much more in terms of options for intervention and prevention. Because ultimately, our goal is to keep our pets as healthy and living as long as possible. And if we're waiting till the end of the course of disease where we're actually seeing clinical signs, our options are limited. We have to do that dental cleaning under anesthesia no matter what. But if we knew this information far in advance, now our options can be more doable for the pet parent at home, whether it's brushing teeth, changing diet, things like that. And this we can continue to monitor it, whether it's every 6 months, every year, to see that if what we're doing is helping them. And this strengthens your relationship because now you're able to provide guidance on whether they should continue doing what they're doing. Do we still need to tweak things? And this is going to drive even industry to develop products to actually fill this sort of early gap where now we're able to detect diseases so much earlier. And that means we're able to intervene. That means new products. That means new therapies. And this is a whole area that we just haven't explored yet. And this is the beginning. So as much as you can get into this new technology, I would highly encourage that you do so because you're going to be the trailblazer, the veterinarian, and that's going to be appreciated with your clients.
Oh yeah, this will boost your practice, no doubt, on all levels, as far as competency levels, as far as revenue, as far as client's perception, as far as even your staff satisfaction, because they know you're doing something new and exciting and helpful. So I'm a big fan of this. As we kind of finish up today too, one other quick analogy that I like to give people, and there's a couple of ways to spin it, but if you go back, and look, I've been a vet a little bit longer than you, Kash, but if I go back 30 years ago, and you guys know my interest and expertise in pet obesity, and when I used to think about it, I would see these labs as puppies. And whenever I could have the conversation around osteoarthritis, hip dysplasia, blowing out their knees and elbows, whenever I could actually capture the client's attention around that topic, we had a much better chance of keeping that dog at a lean and healthy weight, which of course greatly diminished their risk of especially some of these traumatic and chronic injuries to the joints. And so what we would do is we would start to schedule periodic radiographs. The clients that did those predictive radiographs, if you will, they were much more attentive, much more engaged. They came in, they did more. And I see this as just an extension of that. Hopefully that analogy makes a little bit of sense, but what you find are the clients that want this are going to be better clients. Not everybody's going to do this. That's fine. But you know what? There's enough out there that are going to boost it. And this goes back to the Pareto principle, Kash. If 20% of the cat and dog parents in your clinic said, hey, I want to know about the genes. I want to know about diseases that might be coming in the future. It's going to completely transform your clinic, in my opinion.
Yes, and it's that compounding effect, right? You find this information that actually you need to do 10 more things because it's that much earlier, and that's what they want, and they want to do these things ahead of time. They don't like to be put in a position where they don't have a choice but to go into an expensive procedure. So yes, it's great for not just the bottom line, but also your relationship.
Oh yeah, I love it. And look, here's another quick thing. Just be aware that there's really two kind of Basepaws testing that are going on. One, people can download, or they can go online and order like a breed detection types of test, right? But for veterinarians, you guys are offering a much more robust genetic testing, looking at specific diseases. And I think this is important because none of us want to suddenly have a client download a report that says, your dog's going to die, right? So we believe, and Basepaws believes also, that you need to sort of control that communication event, right? So if there are alarming findings, that we believe a veterinary professional should be the one to present that to the client. So maybe walk us through some of the tests, the offerings currently, and maybe a hint at what's to come.
Yes. And I do have a slide on this as well, just showing the current panels that we have available. So, obviously, our first offerings were focused for felines. So, what we're doing now is bringing that technology to the dog side as well. So, breed and health, what that really is a panel that's focused on looking at the health markers. And these are genetic markers that are known to cause different diseases. And our panel has expanded now to over 100 different diseases that we can look for. And this is going to continue as new research comes up. And on the dog side, we're developing these panels for dogs now as well. So that's something veterinarians can talk to us about if they're interested in pre-ordering. And when it comes to dental disease, this is the newest and most exciting product that Basepaws has recently launched. It's using the oral microbiome. And there's also a whole genome sequence offering that we do have. So veterinarians, what we also would like to offer them is the ability to have these tests on hand. So instead of the consumer experience where you're buying one test at a time, clinics can purchase these tests through a distributor and have them, as you would for any other diagnostic test. And you can kind of provide the experience of talking about the test, performing the test with your patient, and also getting the report to your practiced software. And this way you can actually interpret the report yourself, also speak to one of our genetic counselors, or get the additional information that you need to make sense of what's going on if there is some sort of a predisposition that you were not expecting. And that's something you can then provide to the client through a client report, or sharing what your veterinary report has unveiled. And this is going to be available for both canine and feline. And we're always happy to talk through different options, because we want to offer the clinics the easiest workflow that they can. Different clinics have different needs, whether you're offering products in terms of wellness plans, whether you have a clientele that like a more in-depth experience, whether you offer virtual care. So all those things we want to accommodate, and we can accommodate. So just reaching out to us, just vet@basepaws.com is a great way to get in touch with us. And also participating in our research as well. So all those things are available to you to get involved, and you don't have to do everything at once. Starting where you're comfortable and developing that relationship with us, I think is going to be good for you and for your practice.
Oh yeah, guys, I mean, genetic testing simply increases everything else. This is literally the rising tide floats all ships. And the tide begins with understanding your pet's DNA. And heck, even our own. I mean, I've had my DNA tested multiple times, going back 20 years ago. Long story, just a quick one that the Vertical Vet family might find interesting. My wife is what we used to call a double adoptee. So she was adopted, and it turns out her mother was adopted. So we had a complete black hole when it came to her medical information. Now, we decided to have children a little later in life, and so we were scrambling, because our physicians and OBGYN were going, so what's your family history? And it's like, well, I got mine, but we got nothing over here. So we embarked on a lot of genetic testing for both of us to ensure. And so this was back in the early days, very limited, but it did prove helpful, and we've kept up with that over the time. And here's what I see, Kash. This is now beginning on the pet side, right? I mean, this isn't going away. So if you're a vet who's going, well, I'm a little skeptical of this new technology, I don't know if I'm going to get into this yet. This isn't new. I mean, this is 20 plus years. I've got a junior in college who reaped the benefits of this. So my point is, it's well established. It's only going to grow. So we're saying two things. Number one, there's a large cohort of pet parents that already want this, okay? And they're taking it, they're doing it on their own. And so we want to kind of control that a little more. Number two, here's a company, Basepaws, that is embarking on a relationship with vet clinics to do research in real time to make it better. Tell me another company that's doing anything remotely like that. And that is why at Vertical Vet, we are very selective with who we bring to you guys, because we want it to benefit not just the company, but we want it to benefit our members and the profession and the pets that we love to care for. So Kash, again, any last bit of advice to that vet that maybe is still sitting there skeptical? What can you do to convince them that maybe now's the time to dip their toe in? Maybe they should start by just having their own pets tests.
That's exactly it, and we're happy to send you a free kit for your own felines. And the other thing is, we titled this "Revolutionizing Pet Care with Early Detection," and that's really a mouthful. But what that is actually what we're doing. And I know that every veterinarian out there cares about two things, and that's the health of their patients and the health of their practice. And here is a really easy way for you to do both. So what we're saying is try it out, try it on your own pets. Be the veterinarian that your clients know that you are and that they want, and you're going to be rewarded for it, not with just better relationship with your clients, but also your practice. I hope that that convinces anyone that's kind of been on the sidelines about it. Um, we are focused on essentially providing the best science that's out there, very transparent. Anything that you have questions about, we're always available. Our team is available. You know, anything that you want to know, you know, we're out there in veterinary conferences. We have a huge veterinary advisory board that Dr. Ward is also a part of. So we have the best of the best doing the best work. So getting involved is only going to help you and your practice. So we'd be very happy if you
It's just so
took part in
exciting,
it.
guys. I mean, for people like me who have been espousing, promoting, advocating for this type of predictive diagnostics for the past 20 years, it is so fulfilling to see it come to fruition. I mean, we knew 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when I was writing some of those wacky articles that many of you didn't read, but I was trying to lay the groundwork for this coming revolution. It's upon us. I encourage you to participate. I encourage you to educate yourself. Again, if you want to talk to them, go to basepaws.com or just reach out to us and we'll get you straight to a doctor like Dr. Kash Kuruppu. Again, I can't thank you enough for spending time with us today. Our members really appreciate understanding the latest and the greatest in technology. You've done a fantastic job, so thank you.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Yeah. Well, listen, Vertical Vet family, another exciting thing to bring to you. I mean, this is a revolution that is well underway. And again, at Vertical Vet, our goal here is not just to sell stuff, but it's to promote the best practices in the profession. And we believe that by incorporating genetic testing into your wellness programs, into your everyday annual visits, we think that you are promoting better health for our pet patients that we love to serve. So again, check them out, basepaws.com. If you want to get a free kit, just reach out to them, tell them I sent you. I'm sure they'll be glad to help you. And if you have any trouble, just reach out to us at Vertical Vet and we will get you in contact with who you need to talk to. So again, another exciting episode of Vet Med School. On behalf of the entire amazing team here at Vertical Vet, I am Dr. Ernie Ward. It has been my pleasure spending some time with you today. Talk to you soon. Bye.